Okay, thank you to Steve and Dawn and everyone, and we're about ready to begin our March 9th regular monthly Budget Committee meeting. So I thank everyone for being patient. We had a little technical problem with our sound. So we are going to begin our agenda with an executive session. So do I have a motion to go into that session? And I guess we're going to do two different items, maybe or maybe not. Our first part of the executive session will be to cover a proposed legal settlement, Jackson versus the Town of Greenwich and Board of Education. And the second part of that will be to discuss Nathaniel Witherall Food Services staffing, and this would be a personnel action. So,
I'll make the motion to move into executive session at 1:12.
And I'll second.
so Leslie Moriarty made the motion, Nisha Aurora seconded it. It's 1:12, and we're going to move into executive session. So, okay. Thank you, Karen. So we came out of executive session, motion by Leslie Moriarty, seconded by Nisha Aurora at 2:07. So now we're going to consider our requests for budget adjustments. Our first item is SE 16, which is the first selectman, and it's a settlement, Zaxton versus Town of Greenwich and BOE.
So I'll make a motion to approve a settlement in this case of $60,000.
And I'll second.
So motion made by Leslie Moriarty, seconded by Nisha Aurora, for a proposed settlement at $60,000. Do we have any discussion about that motion? No. Okay, those in favor? 400, that motion has passed. Our next item is Nathaniel Witherall. This is a personnel action. It is a request for 3 additional full-time employees, and these are specifically food services staffing employees. So in your packet, we have a form that is completed by the, I think, the HR committee working with the HR department, and probably specifically with gratitude to Miriam. And this was passed by the HR committee last month, I think. So you have the table there, and they propose to add 3 full-time full food services employees with benefits. And as it's being proposed, there's a savings because the Witherall was paying a higher hourly rate for their food services company. So indirectly, I guess, for employees. And these would be employees hired by Witherall, and they would receive a full benefit package, including health benefits and appropriate retirement package. Any comments on this one? Are we ready for a vote?
Let me put the motion on the table and then we can have conversation. So I'm going to move to approve 3 additional full-time employees for food service at Nathaniel Witherall.
Okay. So motion by Leslie to add 3 additional full-time employees to Nathaniel Witherell. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Laura Erickson. Do we have a discussion?
Let me indicate that,
Actually, may I just, I'm sorry. I think we if you don't mind, could you add a dollar amount since we do have the sheet?
yes, the additional cost for these 3 employees is $128,191.20, which is offset by savings of $190,000 of $827 in their operating costs for an annual period.
Thank you. And so, thank you. I just think
Yeah,
that's good
no,
to
it's
have those
appropriate
numbers.
to put the numbers out there. So, based on the financials presented, without understanding any of the other factors, this is a saving of $63,000 for the organization. Operationally, what we understand and what the HR committee talked about and understood, and I believe they voted in favor 4-0, is that there is a shortfall in providing this service, that the headcount in this particular area of the operation was reduced several years ago. The need hasn't been reduced the way the operation functions, and so it's being serviced now by contract employees. And these are realistically positions that are covered by the existing union agreement with the Teamsters. So it seems that to provide the function, you need to provide these full-time positions. I understand that some members of this committee think that there should be 3 reductions in the headcount at Nathaniel Witherell to offset these, but I don't believe any have been proposed, and they don't believe they can perform the functions they need at the operations with that reduction. So given that information, I think I would support the proposal.
Okay. Are there any comments further? All right, Laura?
This is just a very technical point. I support this proposal on the merits of the economics, but on the form, which I think we're all getting used to, is some of the dates in the upper right corner seem to be off. And on the bottom, we should note when the HR committee, what the vote was. I know Leslie said it was 4-0, but I think we just need, if we're going to use this form, let's put in the right dates. It says 22, 23 for the salary and benefits, so it'll be a partial year. And then it just says date approved by HR, OFS, board, and it says January 15th, 2022. I just don't think those numbers are right, those dates are right. And if we're going to use them, let's make them right. That is correct, for a partial year impact. But then underneath, it's approval dates, and those dates just seem to be filled in. Maybe you need to use the mic, Larry. We're being broadcast.
We submit the form, it then goes to the HR committee, and then what happens with the form after that, I have no idea.
Yeah,
So-
no, I'm just saying the dates are January 2022, not 2023. We didn't start this over a year ago, I hope.
So I think,
got it.
I
These
think
were-
the date of that HR committee meeting was probably the 21st or the 22nd of February, but I think we have at least one member of the HR committee. And I'm talking about 23. I'm not talking about 22. So,
All I'm suggesting is that these
You're
be
correct.
fixed before it comes to the full BET. If we're going to use these dates, if this is part of the form,
I agree.
and it's not, I would say, the most critical part of the form, let's just fix it.
It was the 15th of February.
15th of February.
10 a.m. Thank you. Here,
So 15th of February, 23, not 22. Thank you, Laura. Do you have any more comments, one way? Nisha?
Yeah, I understand the merits of the economics of this, makes a lot of sense, right, from a savings standpoint. Appears, or, we've been, the role exists, and we need to fill it, we need to figure out a way to fill it. My concern really here with this this request is that, you know, there's a lot going on at the Witherell, and we're trying to address some of the largest issues being with the receivables, which we heard about just a few weeks ago, and I know we're working through it. And I'd like to see the organization work through all of some of the challenges that they're having, which I think are the highest priority at this point for the organization. So, you know, I know look, from a, I would say, operational standpoint, I think just adding, whether it's adding new employees, adding headcount to an organization that right now has bigger challenges, I'd like to see us address those before. I understand economically this is not a great viable solution to carry on for a very long term. But I think we can resolve this. I'd be happy to reconsider this in a few months as an interim if we need to. But at the moment, considering where we are, knowing the challenges that the Witherell is facing on receivables, I'd like to see us address those first to make sure our executive director has a handle on that. And then before we decide we want to add any headcount. So I will not be supporting this today.
So I will add, you know, we do have, we've talked about sort of net neutral staffing elsewhere. I do think this needs to be addressed, probably as early as possible, because of grievance filed, and that needs to be addressed. But likewise, you know, again, I'd like to, at this point in time, I am not in support of adding additional headcount without looking at some kind of a net neutral. And, you know, perhaps we just need to think about how we can, whatever, look at things operating for fewer residents, whatever. But I don't think at this point I can support this particular item. So should we take this to a vote, or some more comments?
Let me make a comment, just because I don't want to, my concern here, and I understand there are operational or more financial issues on the finance department side of Nathaniel Witherell, but we're talking about patient care here. So, and one, there's patient care, but secondly, we could be incurring additional risk to the town. We have an open grievance. There isn't the resolution of this grievance is that these positions and this service are Teamster functions. So we are incurring a risk to the town as that grievance continues without being resolved.
So, Nisha?
Before we take a vote, I just wanted to clarify, I'm not advocating that we not continue to provide the same services. I think we should continue to outsource until, if we need it, if required, and make sure we can continually provide the same level of service to our patients. That's not my concern at all. My concern really is ensuring that we get our ducks in order before we start adding headcount to this facility, which has some really serious challenges on the financial side. And then on the grievance issue, I think, you know, as we have heard, that, you know, these things take time to play out, right? So hopefully we can resolve the receivables issue in the next few months, get at least some clarity of the direction of the organization. And again, I'm happy to reconsider this in a few months. The idea is here not to pull out the grievance. So I think we can limit the risk to the town at the same point, put some pressure on the Witherell to make sure that we can get these finances. Just focus, that's our primary focus right now. Get that figured out before we decide we want to add headcount.
So I'll just add that currently Nathaniel Witherell is being staffed with 213 people, according to your budget for fiscal year 24, and that stand me correct. I said that it's increasing by 10, but I think you said this is an error in fiscal year 23, and it's actually it was corrected, so I would say that we've got 213 combination of full-time and full-time equivalent employees at Witherell. Is that correct, Larry? I mean, you just, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, 213 positions. So I think it's, I mean, there has been proposed solutions, including training of other functional areas of the same union, including housekeeping and laundry workers. And so I think to support Nisha's point, I would say, let's see how in the interim that works out. Laura?
It's my understanding there's, of that 213, that there are 6 food service workers, and that we're proposing to bring it up to 9 food service workers. Some of those 213 employees have to work, I mean, they have to cover 24/7, 365 days a year. So what I'm worried about is service. And, one of the problems with the contracted agency for this function is not only is it more expensive, there's a less reliable service level because it's not necessarily the same people, right? It could be different people coming in and service the needs of the, deliver the food to the residents. So, while I fully agree that, there are issues at Nathaniel Witherell that need to be addressed, the receivables, the disposition of this RFP that's been outstanding, I really think that we have to focus on, are we delivering the best services to the residents of the facility? And I think that while there's no guarantee we can even hire for these positions, let's be clear that this is a restoration of positions that were cut in I can't remember what budget year they were cut, but they were previously full-time positions that were cut, and now we're really restoring a service level.
Now I'm totally confused, because before we just heard that this is not 24-hour staffed, that this can be staffed by.
I was referring to the 213. You were making a point about the 213, and I was saying some of that is because you have to have staff at the facility 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Correct, I agree with that point. Again, again, we've heard some numbers, but not clear the rest of the numbers. I mean, I see, I'm not sure. Larry, how many food service workers are up there?
It says 6 in the budget book. Yeah, I didn't look at I don't have it in front of me, I was just from memory.
Well, I mean, there's kitchen workers and whatever, and then you move down here, and then there's another full-time equivalent of 8, et cetera. So I don't think this is totally clear. I mean, I would have to go through. I'm just doing this on the.
Leslie, while you're looking for that, also just to follow up with Laura on the sheet, on the bottom, it doesn't have the healthcare cost, the maximum healthcare cost. So that should be filled in before it goes to the BET. Where it says, please include cost here.
Right. Anyway, are we ready for a vote? Would you like to come up to the table, please, Laurie?
So I think, and I'm addressing Nisha's point particularly, I think delivering food on time is the most important complaint we have. I think to commingle or combine the AR issue with the food service is a disservice to Witherell. I don't think hiring 3 people is an extraordinary management challenge, and I think fixing the food service and the food delivery is one of our highest priorities. I get more complaints over food than anything else. And I'm going to save money. I'm going to have better service. I'm going to have people that know what they're doing. I'm going to get the Teamsters off my back, not mine, literally. And this solves any number of problems. The agreements is not going to go away. It's just going to get worse. And it's just this, and these are the kinds of things that detract from management's attention. It's not the issue of hiring 3 people. And the problem, and the sad part is, if you turn this down, is we have a new food service vendor, they're providing great food, but if we can't deliver it on time, filled out correctly, it just diminishes the whole experience. So I urge you to think about saving money, giving a better service to the patient and residents at Witherall, and laying us focus on the bigger issues. I'll say one more thing. So we have 148 full-time people. We at the moment have 16 vacancies, 15 vacancies. And I know you're looking to trade positions, and I might trade positions when I know a little more about how it's all going to unfold. But I have a lot of vacancies. I just cannot say to you today, this, and this.
And when might you know that?
I might know that not before your BET meeting. I have ideas, but, they're not in the same union, and I have to think about this, how we orchestrate that. There are clearly
Can you
positions
give me
I
a
could
kind of a
give.
time frame?
If I had a CFO, how about within the next 4 or 5 months? I'm thinking August.
Not by the first of the fiscal year?
No, maybe. There's too many things going on around July 1st. But there are changes that can be made. I don't disagree with that. I just cannot promise today, and I don't want to publicly say today, here's what we don't need and here's what we do need. But there are possible positions to change.
So that a compromise might be to address this in the short term, addressing in the motion that the headcount will increase to 151, but it's expected in the new fiscal year to be at 148.
That's a reasonable expectation.
Okay? Thank you.
I just want to comment, and I hear you, Larry. I know exactly what you're saying, that, solving these two are disconnected items, the receivable and the issue that you're having on the food service. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of, I've got a CEO, I've got two departments. One department is struggling, and the way to resolve it is by adding these 3 additional employees to help resolve some of the food issues that have come up. And then we have another department, which happens to be your finance department, which has a major issue that we're trying to work on, which, by the way, the same CEO is addressing both concerns. So from a perspective of, well, let's add, and I understand, I'm not saying again to reduce the service. I think we continue on the outsourcing model and continue to be able to provide the level of service to those patients. My concern is when you add 3 individuals full-time on unions, that's a perpetuity, right? It's very difficult for me, like even often in my private life, I'll do somebody hourly knowing it's 2X or 3X because there's some uncertainty behind that position or that role or that individual.
Yeah,
So
but
to me, there's
keep
an uncertainty behind the business model that we're seeing at the Witherell, right? So it's not, I am not, by no means do I want this to be perceived as I want any less patient care. I want to see Witherell confirm to me that they have a business model that's working. We've got the right people in charge to be able to manage it. And I think we're getting there. I think we're working on it. But I don't have a high level of confidence from just the last few weeks of the amount of information that I got. So once I see that confirmation, I would be more comfortable adding, again, headcount for union labor is a very difficult thing to unwind. So I'm not sure. I think I just heard Leslie say, well, we can add 3 now till the end of the session. I'm not sure how that plays out or if that's a realistic expectation. I would think that would be a very difficult challenge to hire 3 full-time employees and then try and get out of that for the next fiscal year. I'm not sure if that's what she was suggesting. So to me, the concern is not.
I'm not going to cut those positions, but I have other positions that I don't think I'm going to need.
So Is there
But
any
not
other
in
comment?
food service. Food service, if I solve the food service problem, I can focus on other problems.
So, are we, have any more questions? Are we ready to go take this to a vote? So, I would like to make an amendment to the motion made by Leslie Moriarty. I can't remember who seconded that, but that in a different. Laura, seconded by Laura. And, I would like to make a motion that that this amends the fiscal '23 budget to add 3 persons to the TOO, 3 food service workers to the TOO. However, it is that the expectation is for the fiscal year '24 budget, that the bottom line, which would equal 151 persons, but for the fiscal year '24 budget, the total number of full-time positions would total 148, but the positions, we're not designating what positions that might be.
I'm not committing to that on July 1st.
Well, we just came up with a motion. Do I have a second to my motion?
Can I ask for a clarification? Because I heard what you said was for next year's budget. So that's, for us, that's July 1st. So you're now not saying that that's not possible?
I'm saying within next year's budget, I can find the 3 people to eliminate. I'm not saying to you I'm going to eliminate the people on June 30th. I said something like in the August, September timeframe.
Could we,
It's the expectation that they'll be back.
I'm not,
But there's 2 actions that in order to make this work the way you're saying. One is an action today to increase the head count. I mean, there's multiple actions we could do today. But one action today, per your motion, was to increase the full-time equivalent, the full-time positions by 3 to 151. However, there is another action to be taken, I'll say it's on April 4th, to modify or not to modify the fiscal '24 budget. It's very difficult to do it when it's shaky, as just mentioned.
I know, but what I'm hearing is that he can't commit to meeting that, and I don't want July 2nd to roll around and 3 people don't have jobs. So I don't think that's workable solution.
Well, Leslie, again, in a dialogue, I also heard Mr. Simon say that there are, and I've heard 2 different numbers, but either 15 or 16 vacant positions at this point in time. Perhaps, he can not fill some of these positions because we're not designating what these positions would be. Perhaps by July 1, he's not going to fill 3 of these positions or some equivalent positions as people retire or they resign or whatever.
So perhaps the way to do that is to condition the Nathaniel Witherell budget by the amount of $128,000. And that would cover the extra cost for these 3 people. I don't know how we do it in the head count. So that's my issue.
Larry, you can just hold off hiring some of these 15 or 16 people or other people that retire, and you can meet your head count by doing it that way, rather than having formally done what you're talking about, can't you? No.
Well, there's a difference between head count and
Right,
positions.
right.
I could say to you, I won't have more than 148 full-time people employed.
Right.
I have to say, I'm a little confused about what the amendment is and who
Okay.
seconded it.
Shall I withdraw my amendment?
I have not yet seconded it because I wasn't clear it was even doable, so.
I think, did Leslie second it?
I didn't second either because as
Okay, so
identified.
I'll withdraw the amendment. I thought I was trying to come up with a solution,
You did come up with a solution.
And I thought it was a pretty good solution, to be honest with you. I thought it was working,
I did,
addressing the grievance problem.
I do like your solution, but what I'm hearing is it's not really achievable. So again, I think there's two ways to do this. I think once you've reduced the headcount, you can come back and say, I've reduced the headcount. And I think Leslie's saying if you can get it done by June 30th, then let's put it in the amendment. If you're
almost
saying I
certain
can't
I-
commit to that, then let's just wait until you can, and then we'll revisit this
Yeah,
when
well-
you can.
I mean, this solves the problem, Larry. I think that you could, you know, work with John Mastinardi to try and see if you can, I'm sorry?
Sorry, I was having a sidebar.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone that this passed HR by 4-0, so I don't know what happens if this committee doesn't move it forward, if it still goes before the full BET.
It's
But
like
I'm-
anything,
but
Laura.
I'm very- the chair has the
always
discretion.
his discretion to either add it to the agenda or not add it to the
Right,
agenda.
I'm just very uncomfortable linking, you know, what's a clearly economically a good solution with, you know, actions that could or could not be taken in the future. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. So I'd rather take a clean vote. We all know that Nathaniel Witherell is going to be before us at various points because we've been having these discussions. And I think it's a continuing dialogue. I think they've been coming to our meetings as asked when given enough notice, I guess. So I encourage that dialogue. But from a business perspective, we're going to save money. So
But that's only, Laura, that's only.
So we're going to just take a vote now.
Well, I have to address that. I think business economics, it's a good short term, yes, we're going to save money. It's not clear on the long term, we're going to save money. When you add a union employee, that's a perpetual stream of money that we're paying out. It's not till June, it's not only for one fiscal year or until June 30th. So we have to keep that in mind. If the business model for Witherell changes in 6 months, then we're in a different situation. This is not necessarily.
Nisha, I'm well
good.
aware. I'm well aware. I've been very familiar with Nathaniel Witherell. But all I'm saying is that if we don't do this, we're going to continue to pay outside labor costs at 30.
Yeah, but I
in the
also
high 30s.
understand that, Laura. We
All right,
just had that discussion.
let's just vote.
Yeah, so let's just vote, yeah.
So, I withdrew my motion. No second. Those in favor, I would have liked to have had a second, move ahead on that basis. I tried to compromise. So, those in favor of Leslie's motion to approve the sheet with, and I'm just going to, it wasn't amended for that, but it was amended to include the dollars amounts. It wasn't amended to include Laura's proposed changes, but cleaning up the sheet so it's accurate, I believe can be done without a further amendment. Is that correct, Laura? Okay, so those in favor of approving of the 3 additional persons? 2. Those against? 1. And those abstaining? 1. That motion is passed. I abstained, and Nisha voted against. And so it's 2-1-1. So that motion is passed. Solving your problem. Thank you, Larry. The motion is passed. You have 3 people.
It's always a
All right.
pleasure.
Now it goes to the full BET.
I'm gonna
I
talk to
assume
the
it'll be on the 27th of March, which is the next BET meeting. So
Monday?
that's a Monday.
It conflicts with your board meeting.
Well,
That's
but
a Monday.
You start after my board meeting.
Start at 6:30.
Moved it up. All right, but I don't have to be the first item on the agenda, you know.
I'm sorry? Anyway, I can't hear you, but
And
thank
John
you,
come
Larry,
back?
for coming, and, you know, it was also very helpful for Erica to fill in the executive session, because unfortunately, Mary Pepe was ill. Right. Okay,
We
so,
didn't talk about this as routine or non-routine, but if it's not routine due to the board conflict, I just note that it's unlikely that the executive director or Larry would be able to be here.
well, I would say that with this vote, that this becomes non-routine, but I leave this up to the chair. So we all agree that this is non-routine.
No, we can delegate the decision.
Well, we make a decision now, and then he can do, our chair,
Makes sense.
Dan Ozesmir, can do what he wants. I'm sorry, what about we didn't also comment on the settlement, routine or non-routine? I would say that is routine.
I'm going to leave that up to the law committee.
Well, coming out of the budget committee, I'd say it's routine. Leslie? Legal settlement?
Yeah.
Nisha? Routine, okay. Okay, so now, after all of our administration, we have CA1, the Commission on Aging, for $40,000, and this is a transfer for the senior lunch program, senior center lunch program.
Yes, good afternoon.
And we have Laurie Contadino, the Executive Director of the Senior Center, to present this.
Yes, thank you. Sorry we're here to talk about food. Seems to be a theme this afternoon. So what we are requesting is a transfer of funds from 4 separate object codes in an aggregate of $40,000 to fund our current pickup lunch program through the end of the fiscal year. This will be the last of the lunches that we've been offering to older adults over the past 2 years. And our next fiscal year, all funds will go toward the opening of the cafe and our new food service enterprise. So we're just seeking to fund the current lunch program that we use restaurants through the end of the fiscal year.
Any questions? Leslie?
No.
Nisha, no? Laura? No questions.
Thank you.
So, I mean, how many days now a week do you do? I just asked the simple questions. I think you did give us these, we asked similar questions at the Budget Committee, the department meetings for fiscal year '24, but can you just give us an idea, like, how many days a week you do this and how many lunches you serve?
Absolutely. So we've been serving 2 lunches a week. The total number of older adults that have been taking advantage varies between 160 and 175 per lunch. Older adults pay a contribution of $6 per lunch, which gets deposited into the general fund. So thus far this year, we've raised $31,400 in revenue. And what we're seeking to do for the last 4 months of this fiscal year is reduce the number of lunches to 150 max per lunch offering, just so that we can manage within the requests that we have before you. And also, we're going down, we're limiting the number of days that we're offering lunch, because costs have gone up, it seems exponentially, with many of our food service vendors across the board. And so what was an equitable solution 2 years ago, it's vastly outpacing what we can afford at this juncture. So we just want to carry us through to the end and then introduce a whole new model with the opening of our cafe in the next fiscal year.
So thank you, Laurie, for the additional information. So I'll take a vote now. Those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Nisha, did you have a question based on?
I don't know why I did that.
Oh,
I went to vote. Just reaction. I was voting no, pushing the button.
Put the motion on the table. Motion?
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to transfer 40,000 of, let me just get the sheet up, 40,000 to the food line of their budget, coming from extra funding in their 100s and 200s
I'll second.
and 400s. Thank you, Laura.
And are you suggesting this is routine or
I
non-routine?
think this should be routine,
Routine,
yes.
okay. Those in favor? 400, that motion passes.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Oh, no, no worries. Thank you.
So Roland, I'm going to turn to you. We kept economic conditions report on here because you said maybe you might have some information, but recognizing that this is March 9 and it's very early in the month for us to have a meeting, so
I'll send it out next week.
you'll send it out in the next week. Okay, great. And I'll just add, likewise, frequently I provide some information on the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for our area. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics won't be announcing that until next Tuesday, the 14th. So again, early in the month. So we have two sets of minutes on our agenda for our Budget Committee meetings, both in February, the regular meeting and the special meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 15th and February 22nd.
And I'll second.
Okay, those in favor? Those opposed? 400. And I don't know if there are any further comments. We've just come out of a pretty lengthy budget period, and the next time we'll get together, I guess, as a group, in the full BET will be March 27th, and the reason for the lag is just school vacation periods and so forth in the interim. And so that didn't fit to have our meeting later in the month. And then we will begin a busy period. The 29th is the public hearing on the budget. And then the 4th of April is the BET decision day on the fiscal year 24 budget. So that's our cycle. And so we thank you.
I move to
Oh,
adjourn.
move to
at
adjourn.
2:49.
Second.
Those in favor? So, 249. Well, maybe 250. 249. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful vacation.